and it is run by the priest, the Catholic priest. It was for interfaith dialogue, just to make sure, because there they look at where here they call them infidels in Mombasa, they say what when you're the moon. So anybody who has hard hair should be forget about it. Now, questions?
We have really compressed you up with several files of presentations. But I think in the interest of time, we thought we should give you this opportunity, even without going for coffee or tea break, that we get into the questions, because I'm sure most of you have questions, most of you have comments, most of you have concerns, and as we mentioned in the video, we would like to represent the true view.
The selection of the sites where this research was being conducted, which to me, I mean, we talked about Nairobi, Mombasa and Garissa. And even in Mombasa, there's the areas that you highlighted that someone might have recommended that you do the study. To me, who works here and does a lot of CVE work is already marginalizing enough. It would have been interesting if you had conducted the same research in places like Changama, for example, like Jombo. I would have been very interested to see the variation, even in terms of expression of the drivers and the pull and push factors. So that was my first. I was expecting to get something that is outside the normal. That is one. Again, the selection of sites, talking about Mombasa, Garissa, and Nairobi, I was hoping I could get some work done in the regions like Kakamega County, like Nakuru, like Kisumu, where from our experience, we have produced the most lethal terrorists and people who have joined the extremist groups. So that's also interesting. I mean, I would have been interested just here. The drivers in areas like the Lake region, I'm sure would have been extremely different. Now, I will come to the feedback that you got. I just wonder whether there were any comments from government officials, and whether government officials were part of the. I heard there was an organization that was providing links to the government, and I'm sure NSC are here. But it would have been interesting to see their feedback on the perceptions of the population about violent extremism and what they think the drivers are. Finally, I was very shocked about the findings in terms of the most important drivers. That in Garissa, Mombasa, and especially Garissa and Mombasa look very similar, and I can understand. But that the question of unemployment was prioritized, and that religious ideologies were actually rated almost the least important to me. And maybe that shows the kind of work that religious interventions around religion have been done. But it will be very interesting to hear some comments about that. Finally, it's about the timing of this research. I would be very interested to know when it was conducted, especially the data collection. But that also informs the outcome, and especially the rating that's been provided to some of the indicators that we provide. But I think I agree with most of the findings. I agree with them. And would also have loved to hear, maybe when you have time, Madam, to also tell me what people think about the interventions by civil society. As a member of civil society who works with the youth, I would be happy to hear some of the feedback. But maybe I can hold it.
Okay. I think we go to the second question.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Churchill. I'm representing an organization called Enjoying Everyday Life. Enjoying Everyday Life is a counseling center. It specifically works with young people. And it is critical in this question that the issue of drug abuse has been mentioned, especially in Mombasa. Having worked with youths for about 15 years in the issue of drugs, I just want to know, I just want to zero in on this question where there is historical injustices which the youths are reacting to. And the extent of use of drugs in Mombasa, I mean, young people are going into drugs in droves. I just want to put it in such a way that it will be understood as much as we are talking about extremism and violence. The case of historical injustice, according to your research finding, is it proven that the issues or the problems that are emanating, which are affecting the young people to conform to extremism, is specifically true? Is it true that it is historical injustice? Is it proven? Or is it a bias of maybe ethno-religious or political reasoning? Did you really prove that historical injustice is influencing this action? And also, if it is true, if you prove that it is true that the historical injustice is a problem, then how volatile is the future? If this problem will not be handled in the short or long term, can you prove that it is going to be very volatile for Kenyans to harmonize and fulfill their development agendas in coastal Kenya if this issue will not be handled amicably? Also, is it valid to blame the current dispensation of leaders if it is true that there is some historical injustice which was meted on the coastal population of Kenya? And if the current dispensation of leaders is to blame, what do you think, according to your finding, the leaders should do in order to find a lasting solution? This is, I think, for the meeting. My question is because we are in the affected, representative of the affected population, and as a social worker and as a youth worker, I have the feeling of the population, especially the young people, that if we don't find a solution soon, and with the extent in which the actions of extremism are catching up, and the report findings from the NACADA and the security, the extent and the growing impact, the negative impact, then I think as much as we are also here, it is my question to the population representative, what should be done? What should be done? What should we do?
Okay. Yeah, you raised very many personal questions. Some of them will get back to, some of them will refer them. There was number 3. Yes.
My name is I work for the organization called Movement for Human Rights. Okay, mine are questions but also comments. First, the first one was the geographical location of the research. Just like my sister Phyllis, what she said about the other countries. But for me, I want to add places like Lamu, Kwale. I think there are a lot of issues of radicalization, and even data survey internally, there are a lot of these issues that are issues of radicalization and violence. And it would be nice if the research did not go into such those areas, but can we look at what other researches have been conducted in the same that have covered such areas? And to mention on that, as an organization in 2015, we did a research on youth radicalization at the coast, and it was an extensive research that even it really involved the security officers who they were able to express where some of these places are. So maybe you can look at that report. I'm willing to share it online and in our website. I'm willing to share because it's a recent research that can maybe be added into some of the gaps in the areas that are not released from this research. Secondly, during the introduction phase, you were mentioning about the resolution 1325, the 4 pillars of the resolution. But we have a specific resolution to review, resolution 22 How do we ensure that that resolution is also included into this research? Or because youth also contributes to issues of peace and security. So how do we have the youth voice in terms of the resolution that was passed in 2015, and on 8th of March this year, we have a status of update on the issues of youth on peace and security that was done during the 72nd session at the UN General Assembly. So I'm willing to share some of those. And thirdly, you mentioned the issue of IDRC, Mombasa, with their national, their regions, is it plans or because strategy
Regional
on countering violence?
Regional strategy.
Regional strategy. So I'm looking at it in terms like we have in Kenya, for instance, we have the national strategy, we have the county action plans that all feed into that. Instead of doing so many strategies that sometimes even they defeat the purposes, can we look at what are the gaps in the existing strategies and make sure that in that strategy, I don't know if we are going to call it a strategy as such, but so that we look at the gaps that are really existing so that we improve, like if we're looking at our national strategy for Kenya, the Kenyan chapter, we look at the gaps that are really existing in the current strategy so that we improve on the existing documents that we have, so that we don't have so many documents that maybe talk of the same thing, but documents that are able to be used efficiently.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And the fourth question.
Thank you. My name is Suresh, Advocacy for Women in Peace and Security. I work with women and girls. I want to commend the in-depth research that has been done, and I think the process was quite exhaustive. I just want to join my colleagues that I'm surprised with the outcome of Mombasa, which brings us back to, I think this report is really going to inform on our next programming, because I think as civil society we've looked at things in a very different perspective. My first question is on the issue of migration. I've read many reports about refugee camps being a source of terrorism. But from your report, I wonder whether you visited Garissa, the refugee camps in Garissa, whether there was any feedback or whether there was anything on that. And the Mombasa youth talked about foreigners coming into Mombasa to take their properties. That is migration as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how the questions on migrations were put to be able to get a feedback on that. What surprises me is also on the issue that number 1, number 2, number 3 is historical injustice, marginalizations and land questions. For the last almost 7 years, we've had devolution. So it looks like it's not working. Because I thought devolution is supposed to come and sort out historical injustice and the issues of marginalization. And I want to agree with one of my colleagues who said, is this politics? Because if we come down to the real issues of land in Mombasa and we get statistics, the locals own the land in this town. The absentee landlords, the Mazruis and whatever you call it. So I think when we go into programming and interventions, we really need to ask ourselves hard questions. Do the youth really have information? Or is it the information that they are picking because they want to be victims? Because I think there is a big problem here. For me, I don't see any truth in this. One thing that I'm very happy about that I thought was going to be number one was the issue of the family. I've worked with women for the last 25 years, and I can confirm for sure most of the youth that have been recruited in this town come from single heads, women that are heads of households, absentee fathers, women that you've mentioned very clearly that are overwhelmed because they have to go to Kongoea, they have to go to schools, they have to take care of the sick, they have to do everything because the fathers are not there. For me as Surya, that is number one issue in Mombasa County. That's the feeling I have because families have broken down, we have no role models, even the traditional extended families that used to come in and take charge are no longer there because families have become just families and then nobody wants interruption, people are so overwhelmed with their own problems, nobody cares about your next door neighbor. So I think, and you also mentioned in your literature review about we need to really go down to find out when does radicalization really start taking place, and we talked about 4, 5, 7 years. Those are children who are in the family unit. So I think maybe this is something we really need to look into to see really where did the rain start beating us. Another point I want to ask is on the government. We've heard about government having interventions on PVE, CVE. I have been in civil society, I've worked for the government, I've done so many things. I just want to have some feedback on where are they working really? Where are they on the ground? How are they linking up with the civil society? Let's not talk about administration. Yes, we work very well with the provisional administration when it comes to, but what about the implementers? Who are the implementers of the government on matters CVE and PVE? Do they come at night? Or is it during the day? Because it's very tricky, because we don't see them. The policies are in place, and we've been told when we go to international platforms, you see government giving out very beautiful reports, but where do they do this work? On the issue of geographical, I also want to support my colleagues. I think Mombasa, Garissa, Nairobi has really featured. But of late, we've seen Isiolo and Marsabit being the really county issues. Most of these people who are being picked and disappearing are coming from those two counties, but they're not in the media. I don't know why as we are in the media. Is it because guys want to mess up our tourism? No, I'm speaking like a Mombasa person, like the youth. Just thinking aloud, because we are always out there in the media, probably for the wrong reasons. But to be honest, I think we have counties like Marsabit that is really breeding terrorism, and even in Isiolo, where a lot of youth have been recruited, and institutions have been known to influence that. Well, maybe we need to start doing comparison so that we look at, since we started as Mombasa and Garissa, where have we reached? What about the other people who are picking up? A lot was also going on social media, and Madam Dr. when he talked about youth are complaining that they're on phone because they're working. We know very well they're at home doing nothing, and 24/7 they're on phone. This is a very big challenge. This is a very big, we have youth in our houses, we just, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you have no problem with them. That is the biggest challenge we have. And the issue, only respond to things we understand. So that is maybe when we talk about programming and the issues of interventions, we need to think about how we can go back to the basics and teach ourselves on our ideologies, on some of the issues in our religion. How can a girl, I'm not sure how many questions I've asked, but I had told you it was all the combination of
I think you have provided us with some key information.
Sorry, finally, 1325 has come up, and on the auction grant of the youth, somebody has brought up. At the grassroots level, we are doing a lot in terms of trying to make sure that women sit on decision-making tables. That is, for us, is very key. If women can be in community policy, can be in Nyumbakumi initiative, can be in peace committees, we believe women are the game changers. But it's still very difficult to put women on the table. If you go to the county, we're supposed to have the county advisory peace. If you go to the county commissioner's office and look at the peace committee, I doubt whether you'll find any women. Maybe now they'll come and start taking minutes. I think we still need to walk the talk. Because if women have all information, women know we sleep in their houses, women know what is happening in this town, but we are still not on the table. One time I asked someone and I was told we have a minister for defense as a woman. So what? Having one up there is not going to solve a problem at the grassroots. We really need to have the numbers. I think if the government is implementing that, then not at the national level. We need to come to the grassroots.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarai. I think we should respond to some of the concerns and questions. And if time allows, then we get to the next slide. Right. Katrina, you were not around. The first question was from your neighbor next to you. The question about the selection of the geographical sites. Why places like Yangam, Yangama, Nyambo, and even outside, why did we choose chosen rather than other areas? Because it's the norm that seems to become. What is done in Kakamega, in other areas, why not in Sumu, Mandera, and the Lake region? So that was a question, and also comments from government is very much appreciated. Who we talked to and what did they say? What do they think about the drivers? And the issues of unemployment came as primary and maybe the biggest, but it was a surprise to everybody, rather than religious ideology, which is low. People are surprised because of that finding. And then the timing of the research, when did we conduct this research? What people think the civil society intervention are. I think that those are the things that I have to provide. But let me respond briefly because Tina was not in the room. She will also have. The geographical sites that were selected, I think if we were given the chance to present the methodology and the reasons for selection sampling of the areas was done in conformity with not only our desktop sitting and thinking, yes, literature has mentioned this place, mentioned this place, bombs are exploding more in these places, we would have chosen completely, totally different sites if it was for us in the design of the research. But we consulted policymakers at the IDRC level, she mentioned briefly. We consulted government officials at the Ministry of Interior and also transcended to the counties, county representatives. For this case in Kenya. In Uganda, there's a procedure for it. And they will also share with you the data of what is now going on in the way. So some of the sites were recommended to us by the government officials, by the policymakers. Some of them we thought were emerging very frequently in literatures. Yes, that was one. The other difficulty we have been having, Profina also mentioned, that in our planning we wanted to go to Kisumu in order to sample areas which are very, very, very hot, even within Kenya, like Garissa, Mandera, Kisumu emerging, Nakuru, recruitment taking place. Of course, Mombasa already very much known. When we were designing our strategy, I think there was an incident in Lamu at the same time. So we had all these in mind. But the question of the finances and logistics also hampered us so seriously. In fact, we had Kisumu in our mind until the last day we were here. I think we decided Kisumu from Mombasa that we should drop Kisumu because we had no money. We had no logistics. We had Kisumu in our planning. Why Kisumu? We thought that first, locating different areas within Kenya would help us. That was number one. Number two, most of the things we were hearing that recruitment is taking place was more or less more of Western province, people coming from that side as well. And you would not find a reason why people would always say, yeah, these are Muslims getting more into the recruitment. These are people who you hear the names of Nyango, and Ibire, and they are not Muslims. They are Christians, and they're getting into the recruitment. So our interest was so much in capturing that. Is it really true that religion is the driver? If so, why are those who are not particularly, is it Muslim religions? So there you can see where the surprises are coming from as well. However, we were hampered seriously by little money. The timing of the research, I think, will tell us when we were here, where, I think we talked about when that happened. And also the role of civil society, when we interview civil society, what they're doing and what they're supposed to be doing. Yes, divine literature review I mentioned. Civil society is very much cited. Even from the time of designing a soft approach to counter terrorism, they have found that civil society approach is neglected, and that is the soft approach, which talks more or less directly the opposite of what the government is doing in most cases. You are either with us or we will smoke them out. We will find them. You have to kill them. So this has been the hard approach. Even governments have been adopting, to an extent that it has developed a very clear strategy of why some people are pushed out to join violent extremism. Now here comes civil society with a soft approach. Talk to the minds, have dialogue, understand the root causes of violent extremism by dialogue, by including everyone into a discussion. These are two different approaches. One from civil society, one from government officials, or those who have the legitimacy to use force. And our understanding is that civil society is very much into this soft approach. But some of them are also working with governments. So it cuts across all activities, not only violent extremism. If we begin to talk about, for example, conflict early warning database collection, which they use civil society. The government in particular countries don't trust those civil societies who are providing information about conflict early warning into the early warning unit. So there is a problem that civil societies are facing. And I think civil society are fighting multiple confrontations, mainly from government. That said, it doesn't mean that the civil society are not working with government. There are some civil societies who are really doing well. And maybe with time, I don't know when we come back, we will talk more about what works and what doesn't work. And Tufina, in her concluding presentation, mentioned a few of that. The presentation that you hear mostly target like the negativity from government, most of it. Or if the government did not do, or if it's colonization and so forth. But there are other things that have actually even worked that we could have talked about. The rest I will leave to. There was a question from Ms. Okumo, driving this youth engaging on everyday life. Drug abuse in Mombasa, there is drug abuse in all the sites we visited, I must say that. In Garissa, they are there. In Gulu, Kitgum, Uganda, Mayuge, Nairobi, we found across the board, everywhere. Chewing chat, like the order of the day. Nairobi, all sorts of things is the order of the day. So I think the historical injustice you're talking about, I will leave to Tufina, the historical injustice that the youth are reacting to. Is it true and proven that the historical injustice is entrenching the action of the youth? Most youths have told us that, including even elders. Our literature review also tells us there's grievances, especially this 10-mile street keeps coming back again and again and again. Maybe we also go deeper into the root causes of understanding how we can avert some of this understanding of the historical injustice. It's a complex, historical, embedded issues which has passed through political factors, passed through economic factors, created social factors, and has embedded some cultural and religious foundation with that. So it becomes very complex. And it might emerge as unemployment, but if you ask, why unemployment? We don't have land. Why don't you have land? Our land has been taken away. By who? By these people. Why? So if you keep asking why, you go back and you'll untangle quite a number of things. That affects the solution that you're asking. So what can be done? Okay, maybe our research also should be very clear. We are not providing hands-on solution and say, yes, Mr. Kumu, this is the solution that you should take to this kind of groups, to your community. But we are giving ideas and we are giving facts to policymakers, regional bodies like IDRC, to improve on their strategy. I know they have some of the solution-oriented approaches, but why is it not working? That's why we are asking. And if you know it is not working, why are you not doing something about it? This is what the youth are saying. This is what policymakers are saying. This is what women are saying. This is what the civil society members are saying. This is what the religious communities are saying. So why are we not doing better? And the problem is changing every single day. So I think I don't have solution. I don't have anything which is valid, in my view, which is probably can provide a hands-on solution. I believe that bottom-up approach, the solution is on the ground and with the people, which I know can work very well. What should be done? Geographical side again, by can we look at what other researchers have done in the coastal areas report? I'm very happy with that. If you can share with us your report, because what we are doing is both empirical, desktop, qualitative, quantitative, and if any report has come up, please share with us. It will also help us to at least, not to replicate, and also to guard us against why haven't you gone to Lamu? Because if you have done such a report in Lamu, we will use your report and cite it. Yes, this is very good question about 2250 on youth engagement as opposed to 1325. This resolution, okay, one time I was in Pretoria last year, I talked about it. 2250 was very much desired, has been and still. It is too early. The ratification came in 2016. It was passed in 2015. The ratification took time, came in 2016. We started our research in 2017, last March. We knew about this. We did not even know the direction where this youth strategy is going, taking. One of the criticisms that I found very clear is that 2250 and 1325 are similar in the approach by which they want inclusion. It is also similar in the way there are 5 pillars for this year. It's also similar in the way human rights are being observed within the pillars, more or less. In my view, when I looked at those two resolutions, it looked like they were being replicated here and there. And therefore, one of the key issues that I can share with you here is that the approach by which youth should use 2250 to either make them be inclusive or be in part of governance or make decisions at any level is an activist approach. The youth are taking an activist approach. Because I'm not being heard, let me kill a chicken so that the person knows I'm hungry. Because I'm not being heard, let us explode ourselves. The leaders who are taking our jobs, occupying positions that youth should fill, should be thrown out by force. Leave offices because we also want those jobs. I wonder that such an activist approach has not worked for feminists, which is that only few women who are very much affluent at the top have benefited. So 1325 took a very, very activist approach, and the youth 2250 is more or less also following this kind of approach. The question is, will it succeed if we follow activist approach, of which those who are recruiting for violent extremism know very well that youth are activists. It is very easy to recruit them. and make them generate actions. So let's be, maybe one of the ways of looking at it is how best can 2250 be embedded into other action plan for civil society organizations without provoking activism. Because if you provoke activist approach to youth, then with activist approach, that you can succeed in channeling your voice. It is also through other means. For us, we are saying yes, bottom up, top down approach must meet. IDRC commercial strategies, can we identify? Yes, this is what we are doing. Tina and I were saying that we should also look at all these policies, UN and all that, because government have actually replicated UN global policy and action plan and replicated even regional bodies. But we want to provide opportunities so that we harmonize most of these measures and bring them together and see where it fits. But we have met also with difficulties that countries have their own context. Even within a country, there's a context. I'm understanding that even within Mombasa, it is not only Mombasa County which has its own context, but there's another one somewhere, Lamu has its own. So, can I leave the rest to Tina?
Since we were advised by the government on the hotspots, and when we came, as is a requirement of NACOSTI, we went to the county government, the county commissioner, and reported that we are here and we are doing research in this area. From there, we were advised on where to go, and PISNET also had already made arrangements on the ground. So the idea of the geographical sites, in research, we usually do, we choose, you can choose to do, you can take either 50% or 33.3% of the total population. In our case, we cannot go to all the counties. We would wish to, but we were not able to go to all the counties, and we selected the specific hot spots. This doesn't mean that those are that has ignored the other dynamics that we are getting. For example, people from Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, who are also involved in violent extremism. I know I have a report about the universities, and I know what is happening in Moi University, Kabarak, and the rest. And those students may not be coming from Coast or another region. So we already have all these dynamics, but we chose purposively samples to come to this particular area. We did this research in April. We wouldn't do it after elections because we wouldn't collect relevant data. We chose to do this research before the elections, before the campaigns hit. And if we had postponed, maybe we would be coming to the field right now. This research we would have delayed. And even if we would be coming to the field right now, the findings would be completely different because the dynamics are quite different. Why unemployment is a big factor in the country, and honestly, can we deny that unemployment is not a big factor?
It is.
Huh? It is. Globally, regionally, even in our own houses, how many people are employed there? Let's be honest. So, only that the dynamics, when you will read the report, finally we have to attach other variables to unemployment. We have to consider the age, we have to consider the sex, we have to consider the educational level. Because when we were doing this, when we asked that question to the university students compared to, allow me to say this, mkokoteni pushers, the people who are riding boda boda and the ones who push the carts. When we interviewed them, their perspectives really differed. When we interviewed the people who are working who are in the slums and they do manual jobs, compared to what university students say, the university students had hope for the future. But these ones had said, it's one day at a time. We don't even know if tomorrow will come or not. We are basically surviving. So we wanted to capture those dynamics. So you have to link it to, it's not just generally unemployment and we leave it like that. We must go back. We must interrogate the curriculum. We must interrogate the other variables attached to this unemployment factor. That was not the purpose of our research. We are just collecting evidence according to the, so what they gave us is what we are reporting back. Then after that, we will do we will give our recommendations. CSOs are doing a great job. In fact, everywhere we went, when people would talk about the CSOs, like in Garissa, specifically they told us, even here, they told us, we don't, the same question she has asked, allow me, what is it? Suraya. The same question Suraya has asked, where is the government? And who is representing the government on the ground? This is the same question we were being asked. You say that the government has come up with internet. Even those policies, you see them on TV, they are giving specific, they told us a lot of that. But they say, when it comes to NGOs, they are working with us. We meet them. We have even met the donors. You see, so CSOs are doing a great job. FBOs are doing a great job. For example, just to cite some of the examples, they have come up with peace ambassadors. They have come up with the interfaith dialogue, which is ongoing right now, and it has changed. It's a game changer actually. They have come up with the rehabilitation of those who have come from, and even just doing psychosocial counseling for the families of victims. The CSOs are on the ground and they are hands-on, and they are doing this with the donors, but not with the government. The government only knows. That's what we were told in the field. Now, I would like to go back to Mr. Okumu. Yes, Mr. Okumu. It will be difficult for us to prove anything. We only asked a question and we were given answers. So we didn't go into proving that it is historical injustices or the land question. We didn't prove. So we asked them the question, what could be leading to this? Then they give us answers. Now, this is not new. Even in our literature review, a lot of work has been done on historical injustices, the land question, and marginalization. It's not new. The Kriegler report that everybody is struggling to, that should be implemented right now. What is it about? It's about this land question, it's about marginalization, it's about the historical injustices. And the researches have been done about it, which have culminated in the Kriegler report. Now, why shouldn't we blame the present government or what? We are talking about historical injustices. You see, history informs the present. So if we are talking about injustices. If there were injustices that have been done in the past, the present leaders can do something about it, isn't it? So that we can sort it out. But that wasn't our mandate. Our mandate was to ask a question and then we are given answers. Then the answers that we were given is what we are presenting here. The other one can be a political issue. I don't know. That was not what we were told to do. We sought permission to come and do research, and the ethics gave us certain boundaries. So we cannot go into the politicization of the matters. Allow me. Yes. Now, next is the issue of the geographical location. I've told you we purposely sampled these areas, and therefore we are aware about what is going on in Isiolo and other, like I've mentioned here, the university report. It has come up so strongly, but we did not go there. Maybe in the second phase of our research, we will also consider so that we can do a very good comparative. Thank you very much, Muhuri, for your contributions. I will be waiting for those reports. again, for the issue on what are the gaps in the existing strategies so that we can improve them. That is what we would like to do. Because we realize that even the youth, the CVE policy for Kenya, I don't know, where is it? Do you have it?
Yeah, it's
Please.
online. I can share, but it's online.
It's online.
It's online.
Yeah.
For a very long time we've been working.
Counterterrorism strategy.
There was also the Mombasa one.
That's
So it's there.
No, the CVE strategy,
Not the competence.
not the
The
company.
strategy is
No,
not there. It's not online.
Is it there?
It's not online.
Can somebody Google now and send
Which
me?
CVE strategy are you talking about?
It's not
Are you
online.
talking about the
The
national
national,
action
the
plan?
national, yes.
Okay, I don't know, but I know.
For
I
Mombasa
have-
is also there.
I have a.
The
We have
national
a.
counterterrorism.
Yes,
Can
we
you
have a-
scan and send us, please?
No, it's in PDF. You can
Can
send.
you?
Yes, I can. Even me, I have a copy.
Please,
It's there.
You share.
please do share.
Because we have been looking for
Okay,
it.
maybe it would be nice because it looks like many people don't have
The one-
participants in the email address so
Yes.
that you can share it.
Yes, please share with us so that we
You got
can.
my email there, the Gmail account.
Because if we have it, that will help us a lot. Many people who are doing research in this area. We attended a meeting in March last year in Kenya, in Nairobi, and there were about 33 researchers, academic researchers, who are all asking. I mean, when I asked, everybody raised up their hand. Even me, I need even more.
The one for
Surprised
Kenya.
he's here.
National Action Plan for Kenya. In the last 3 weeks, they're trying to revise it because they have discovered it is not, it's a national action plan that is not saying who is doing what. It just gives you the 7 pillars, talks about the media, talks about education, it talks about, but so what? It's not talking about indicators, it's not saying action plan. So they have come back again, now trying to see how to make it workable so that you can be able to monitor and evaluate.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
so
you see, with that one, it is possible for us to also contribute because it is useless for us to do research for the sake of the